In the next video, we're going to import a flight schedule from our tower log into Simio, and together with that, we're going to be using an arrival table to set as a source for our passengers. So in order to set this up, I'm going to work in the model that I prepared for workshop 13, and it allows me to see how the model evolves over time using my shift dashboard here and the plotting chart here. So in order for this to work, we need an arrival table. So click on data, and under tables, click on add data table. And now make sure to give it a proper name. And I'm going to name it flight schedule. So now I'm ready to set up the various columns that I'm going to need for this arrival table. And I already prepared my file that I want to import in Excel. And so you can see it over here. It has 5 columns, one with the call sign and the flight number, the destination, the date, the EOBT, and passengers. And it has an expression property. So we need to make sure before importing that the labels of these columns are going to be the same as the label names that we'll be using in Simio. So before we import this, I need to make one more change to this. And we're going to call this the STD, and it needs to be the date plus the EOBT all together in one cell. So what this actually is a date stamp. Let's put in the short date. A date and time we can. Yeah, let's go for this. And just to make sure, I'm going to copy this and paste back the values so that now it actually is a value rather than a formula. So when I import it to Simio, it will actually read this as a value. Okay, so other than STD, we have passengers here. So this passenger carries about 100 passengers, and the and the distribution here under expression property 1. Okay, so these are the columns that I need to create in Simio 2. So I'm going to add standard properties, and so the first one is going to be the call sign. So this can be a string because it contains characters as well as values. So this I'm going to rename to call sign. Okay, next is the destination, which is also a string because there are only characters. The next one is going to be date and time. So I believe I call this one STD for scheduled time of departure. So passengers can in fact be an integer number. And the last one is going to be an expression. And you will see that Simio has automatically named this one expression property 1. It's also the same name that I gave to this column in Excel already. Okay, so this is then set. So let's make sure to save this file and import it to Simio. So in order to do this, we're going to bind it to a file, and we're going to bind it to an Excel file. And we need to select it from a place where we can find it. For me, it's under downloads, and I call it flight schedule import Simio. Open it. Okay, so I've now loaded the file. You can see here that the file has been bound, but then I still need to press the import button here to import all the values. Okay, here you can see that the import was successful, and I'm going to remove the binding. So I'm no longer linking these values to the file that I imported, so they are now disconnected from each other. Okay, so now I'm ready to set up my source. So typically you will see that the source has been set up to enter an inter-arrival rate, and now we're going to change that to an arrival table. So we're going to make references to our arrival table here. This is the value that shows up automatically. It's because I already prepared this file before, but let's pretend like that we didn't. So we can select a new property, and the arrival property I'm going to link to the departure time. So I'm going to link it to the flight schedule.std. And it means that this source is going to start creating entities as soon as the date in Simio matches with the date and time that I specified in my arrival table. Okay, just also make sure to open this one. So here I'm making a reference to flight schedule.passengers, so this refers to the number of entities to create for this particular row. And this is going to be my distribution, and I'm not going to set it up like this. So I'm going to remove this and just ignore this because I put this in before when I prepared this file. And now I'm going to say that I'm going to link this to flight schedule. Then expression property. And remember that we said that we wanted to multiply this with a -1, just to make sure that our entities are sampled before the STD rather than after the STD. And if this doesn't make sense to you at this point, make sure to check with the previous video that I made about creating entities in Simio. Okay, so I'm going to press the check mark. It's very important that you also check the minutes here. By default, this is going to be on hours, and make sure to change it to minutes. So now what I would expect to happen is that I'm going to run my simulation for 4 hours starting from 5:30. Remember that I set the departure time, my STD, for 7:30, and I'm going to run my simulation. And you can see that my first passengers are created at the minute 6, let's say 6:15, 6:20 or something. And this is the exact same distribution that I used in the previous video. So I'm pretty confident that this is just fine. I'm not longer going to check whether it follows the exact distribution. I already checked this before. Okay, so this seems to work. So, and notice that we're getting to 100 passengers automatically only because we made references to this flight schedule.passengers. Okay, so we're going to stop the simulation. Just for fun of it, I'm going to add another flight manually. So I'm not going to import it now, but I'm going to add it manually. So we'll just add another flight, Alitalia flight 2002. Destination is going to be Amsterdam. The STD is going to be the 6th of August 2016, and this flight is going to depart at 9:30. And instead of 100 passengers, we're going to say that it's now 200 passengers. Let's do this a little bit earlier actually. Let's put it at 8:30. And this is going to follow the same distribution as before. Okay. So go back to the facility view. And so now we can again run our simulation. This time I'm going to put a breakpoint on the output node of the source. So it's going to pause the simulation when entities are being created and press the run button. And let's see what happens now. So I would still expect to see the first passengers to show about the same time for the first flight departing 7:30, but then I would expect Simio to continue creating entities because I have another flight departing at 8:30. Okay, so the simulation has halted at 6:16, which is about the exact same time as it paused before. Now I'm going to remove the breakpoint and press run. So it's going to start creating entities until it hits 100, at least for the first flight, but it's also going to create entities for the next flight. So there might be some delay, so maybe it will halt. So now it gets to 100, and at the same time, so it's now 6:55, and already passengers are being checked in or arriving at this terminal for the 8:30 flight. Okay, so I'm going to pause the simulation. You can see that our counter has reached 300 passengers, which is exactly the sum of the two flights that I added, 100 for the first and 200 for the second flight. Okay, that's it. This is how to set this up. If you have questions about this, post them in the comment section of this video below. Thank you for watching.